On the very last night of 1997, a small, struggling Christian network with about a dozen outlets went on the air for the first time. The man they chose to put on screen in that very first broadcast was not Marcus Lamb. It wasn't Joni. It was a preacher out of Dallas named T.D. Jakes. 29 years later, after everything this network has been through, his show is still airing.
The Preacher Who Never Left. On the final night of 1997, a small, struggling Christian network with roughly a dozen affiliate stations went on air for the first time. The man chosen to appear in that very first broadcast wasn't Marcus Lamb. It wasn't Joni Lamb either. It was a preacher from Dallas named T.D. Jakes. 29 years later, after everything this network has been through, his program is still airing. The question worth sitting with today isn't whether that's inherently suspicious. It's simpler and honestly more interesting. Why did he stay when so many others didn't? And what does a relationship spanning nearly 3 decades actually mean? Who we're talking about. Before going further, it's worth being clear about who T.D. Jakes is, because he isn't a minor figure who happened to get pulled into someone else's controversy. According to his own ministry's biography, Jakes has advised multiple U.S. presidents, spoke at Barack Obama's 2009 inauguration, and has been named among the most influential evangelicals in the country by Time magazine. He built the Potter's House from around 50 families who relocated with him from West Virginia into a congregation of roughly 30,000 members. His sermon, "Woman Thou Art Loosed," has genuinely helped people process real pain for more than 3 decades. None of that gets erased by the questions in this piece. If anything, it raises the stakes. A minor broadcaster staying quiet during a network's troubles is a footnote. One of the most influential preachers in America doing the same carries real weight, precisely because so many people watch what he does. What Daystar has lost. To understand what staying actually cost someone, it helps to see the full scope of what Daystar has been through over the past 2 years. Since late 2024, the network has lost broadcast partners in succession. Lauren Blaine Tyler Thompson pulled her program, citing what she called ethical failures in the network's senior leadership. An international ministry led by Baruch Corman severed ties shortly after. Then came bigger names. Joyce Meyer. Ministries paused its long-standing relationship with CEO Dan Meyer, writing that the allegations surrounding Daystar had become too troubling to overlook, and that the decision, while difficult, felt necessary. Jimmy Evans and his program, XO Marriage, departed around the same time. These weren't minor ministries quietly slipping away. These were some of the biggest names in Christian broadcasting publicly distancing themselves from one of the largest platforms in the industry, because the allegations had become too serious to sit beside. And yet, according to Daystar's own published schedule, dozens of other prominent hosts have stayed. Kenneth Copeland, Joel Osteen, Paula White-Cain, Robert Jeffress, and T.D. Jakes remain on the air, still associated with the network, even as the family at its center has faced a public falling out, financial transparency questions, and abuse allegations serious enough to trigger an 18-month police investigation.
Roberts and her husband, Torrey Roberts. That's a significant transition for any ministry leader. Stepping back from the pulpit he built from 50 families into a 30,000 member congregation. And yet, as far as Daystar's current programming shows, The Potter's Touch keeps airing under his name. That raises a fair, specific question that I don't have a confirmed answer to.
Staying isn't automatically damning. It's worth being upfront about something here, because it shapes how the rest of this should land. Staying doesn't automatically imply something sinister, any more than leaving automatically made Joyce Meyer a hero. Both choices deserve real scrutiny rather than a reflexive judgment. A ministry choosing to remain on a troubled platform could reflect loyalty built over decades, genuine belief that the allegations remain unproven, simple business inertia, or something the public deserves to better understand. The honest answer is that staying alone doesn't tell us which explanation applies. What can be examined is the specific relationship, and Jakes' connection to this network runs about as deep as any on that entire roster. Tracing the relationship, everything from here traces back to verifiable reporting. According to Christianity Today's obituary of Marcus Lamb, published after his death in 2021, Daystar launched on New Year's Eve as 1997 became 1998, with about a dozen affiliate outlets airing an inaugural sermon from T.D. Jakes. The The Christian Post reported the same detail, describing it as a live broadcast of Jakes' New Year's Eve service from the Potter's house in Dallas. Jakes wasn't a guest appearance on an already running network. By these accounts, his broadcast was the very first thing Daystar ever aired. That relationship didn't end as a one-time appearance. According to Daystar's own current programming listings, Jakes' show, The Potter's Touch, remains part of the active lineup today, airing alongside programming from Kenneth Copeland and other long-tenured hosts. Religion News Service reported in January 2025, right in the middle of the network's wave of departures, that T.D. Jakes was specifically named among the hosts who remained connected to Daystar, while others walked away over what they described as ethical concerns. So there's a 29-year broadcast relationship, predating every scandal by decades, that continued uninterrupted through the exact period when other major ministries decided the reputational risk wasn't worth it anymore. That's the tension worth sitting with, not an accusation, but a genuine question about what that kind of loyalty is built on, and whether a relationship's length can make leaving harder, even when leaving might be the more defensible choice. A complicating detail. There's another layer worth adding, because it complicates the picture rather than simplifying it. T.D. Jakes is no longer even the senior pastor of his own church. In April 2025, he stepped down from leading the Potter's House, the Dallas megachurch he founded in 1996, handing leadership to his daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, and her husband, Touré Roberts. That's a major transition for any ministry leader, stepping back from a congregation he built from 50 families into 30,000 members. And yet, as far as Daystar's current programming shows, The Potter's Touch continues airing under his name. That raises a fair, specific question with no confirmed answer. Is Jakes still personally involved in producing new content for that Daystar program, or is the show continuing to air using archived material from a ministry he's already handed off? Daystar's public materials don't clarify this, and neither does the reporting reviewed for this piece. That's a gap, not a conclusion, and it's exactly the kind of gap a relationship this long deserves more clarity on, not less.
I don't know what conversations, if any, have happened between T.D. Jakes and Daystar's leadership about the last 2 years. I don't know whether his continued presence reflects careful discernment or simple inertia in a relationship that's outlasted 3 decades and multiple family tragedies.
The financial layer. It helps to understand what a relationship like this actually looks like financially, because broadcast partner can sound vague without context. According to Christianity, today's reporting on Marcus Lamb's history, Daystar's business model from early on involved selling airtime to preachers across the country, often drawing them away from competing networks like Trinity Broadcasting Network. By the early 2000s, that model was generating roughly $14 million a year in airtime sales alone, on top of another $14 million in direct donations. That same reporting named other early, long-tenured broadcast partners, including Joyce Meyer, Charles Stanley, Benny Hinn, Paula White, and Joel Osteen. What this tells us is that a slot on Daystar has never been free. It's a paid arrangement with preachers purchasing airtime much like any other broadcaster would. That means the decision to stay isn't purely spiritual or relational. There's a financial relationship underneath it too, one where both sides stand to gain from the arrangement continuing. That adds another dimension to the loyalty question. Staying isn't only about standing by old friends. At some level, it's also an ongoing business transaction. And businesses don't always end relationships purely on principle when there's still financial incentive to keep them going. Why scrutiny matters more here? It's worth remembering why closer scrutiny matters more in this case than it might elsewhere. Daystar's parent organization is legally classified as a church, meaning it isn't required to file the financial disclosure form that nearly every other large nonprofit in the country must submit. There's no annual public accounting of what a broadcast slot on Daystar actually costs a ministry, or what kind of financial relationship exists between the network and its longest-running partners. When an organization has no legal obligation to disclose that kind of detail, a 29-year uninterrupted relationship that survives an exodus of other major ministries becomes one of the few visible signals the public actually has to work with. Loyalty or complicity. There's a simple truth worth returning to every time a story like this comes up. Loyalty and complicity can look identical from the outside, and only the specifics reveal which one is actually at play. Joyce Meyer's decision to pause her relationship with Daystar was public, explained, and specific about what troubled her. T.D. Jakes' decision to remain hasn't been publicly explained at all, as far as any reporting shows. That absence of explanation doesn't prove anything on its own, but after 29 years, and after watching so many peers walk away over the same concerns, silence starts to carry its own kind of weight. What Scripture says, Scripture speaks directly to this tension between staying and leaving, and to the responsibility that comes with influence. 2 Corinthians 6:14 warns against being unequally yoked with unbelievers, asking what fellowship righteousness has with unrighteousness, or what communion light has with darkness. That verse has been used and misused in plenty of church conflicts over the years, so it's worth handling carefully here. It isn't a verdict on anyone's actor. It's a standard, a reminder that spiritual leaders are called to honestly examine their partnerships, especially when serious, credible concerns are raised about who they're standing beside. James 4:17 adds that for one who knows what is right to do and doesn't do it, that itself is sin. That verse doesn't require proof of wrongdoing to apply. It applies the moment someone has enough information to make a choice and chooses silence instead. What to watch for? For what it's worth, here's what's worth watching going forward, whether it involves Bishop Jakes or any of the other long-tenured names still on that schedule, whether any of them ever address the last 2 years directly, on their own platforms, in their own words, the way Joyce Meyer's ministry did. Silence isn't automatically guilt, but a direct, specific statement is always more informative than none at all. And for anyone who has supported this network financially because of a particular preacher's program, it's worth asking honestly whether that preacher's continued presence still reflects the ministry originally signed up to support, or whether the platform around them has changed enough to deserve a second look. There's no way to know what conversations, if any, have taken place between T.D. Jakes and Daystar's leadership about the last 2 years, or whether his continued presence reflects careful discernment or simple inertia in a relationship that has outlasted 3 decades and multiple family tragedies. What the facts on record do raise is a fair question. When you've built something with someone over 29 years, at what point does staying quiet stop being loyalty and start being something the public deserves an answer about? That's not a verdict to hand down here. It's a question Bishop Jakes is in a unique position to answer if he ever chooses to. Thank you for watching The Celebrity Vault.